And we are live, ladies and gentlemen, for a new episode of the Electrek Podcast. I am Fred Lambert, your host, and I'm joined by Seth Wintroud. How are you doing today, Seth?
I'm good.
All right. This episode of Electrek Podcast is brought to you by Electrify America, the largest public electric vehicle fast charging network in the US. We're going to have a little bit more to say about them later on the show, but thanks, Electrify America, for sponsoring this week's episode of the Electrek Podcast. We have a bunch of things to discuss this week, but we're going to jump in with something that came out actually just after the podcast last week. So it's already a week old, but we didn't have the opportunity to discuss it on the show. So we're going to do it now, and that is the new proposed reform to the electric vehicle federal incentive in the U.S. It's something we've been talking about for years, really. It's long overdue that they reform the program. There's a lot of major flaws in the federal tax credit, and especially since Biden won the elections, and the Democrats took control of the Senate and the House of Representatives. There's been a clear indication that they were gonna try to push through a reform to the program, and we've seen a bunch of different legislation pop up over the last year that gave us some indication of what that reform would look like. But this latest here is something that was passed through the upcoming social spending bill, a giant $3.5 trillion spending bill, and it sort as it went through the House of Ways and Means Committee and was approved by them. It sorts of emerged as the leading proposal to reform the federal tax incentive. Let me just remove this real quick. I forgot to do that. My bad. All right, it should stop popping up. And so I'm going to walk you through the updates to this, how it would change the federal incentive. So first of all, the most important thing, it's going to remove the cap of 200,000 electric vehicle deliveries in the U.S. per manufacturer, which was the biggest issue with the program because it affected automakers that were simply early on in adopting electric vehicles, and in this case, it's particularly Tesla and GM that were affected by it. So by removing that, you make it more fair play, and it's just as many vehicles as you can deliver, regardless of the manufacturer. This cap of 200,000 is replaced by basically a 10-year period where they're gonna have access to EV incentive. Now, those EV incentives have changed a little bit. So it's not going to be a $7,500 tax credit anymore, federal tax credit. It's going to be now a $7,500 point of sale rebate. I don't know if rebate is the right word, because if it's point of sale, it's basically a discount. Like, it's basically going to be applied by the seller. So a dealership, or in the case of Tesla itself, since they sell direct to customers. That's my understanding personally. Now, this $7,500 point of sale discount is going to be applied for 5 years, and but there's going to be some changes to what makes a vehicle eligible to that. So the first of all, you need to have a vehicle over 40 kilowatt hours of battery capacity. If not, the $7,500 become $4,000. So significant difference here. At this point, it doesn't have a major impact because most EVs these days are over 40 kilowatt hour, but you're going to have things like the Mazda MX-30, for example, that won't benefit from the full tax credit. Will get a $4,000, which is perfectly fair in my opinion.
Yeah, the other is the old Ioniq and the Mini. I think those are both under 40.
Yeah, there's a few of them that will fall under that, but those are extremely low volume vehicles that have basically no impact on EV adoption in the US. So the next big deal and the most controversial one is, to the $7,500, you can have another $4,500, another $4,500 if the electric vehicle in question has been assembled in a union factory. Okay, that's a big one. We're going to go back to that one, but let me just run through a few of the other points of changes to the program. There's going to be another $500 on top. So if you add them up at this point, $7,500, 4,500, another 500. That's you end up to 12,500, and that last 500 is for an EVs that is using a battery pack that 50% of the component in the battery pack is made in the US. So that includes the battery cells. So basically, you need cells in the US because you won't achieve that 50% mark anyway without the cells. So it's basically saying they want battery cells in the US, which might be a problem for some battery, but the GM with the Ultium battery system should be fine. Tesla with the Model 3, Model Y, the batteries are coming from Nevada. They're going to be fine. But vehicles like the Model S and X, batteries coming from Japan or maybe soon the US, we'll see. There's something to keep in mind. But that's $500. So it's not a big deal. Okay, all those changes are going to be applied for 5 years. But they're talking about extending it for another 5 years after that. However, the main part of the incentive, the 7,500, is going to be only eligible for electric vehicles that are made in the U.S. So Biden has been talking a lot about that lately, that the incentive is going to be for U.S.-made vehicles. Now, in this proposal, it sounds like they're basically giving a 5-year grace period to foreign automakers to still get access to the incentive with vehicles that are not made in the U.S. Another interesting aspect here is they're going to finally introduce price cap on the actual vehicles to be eligible. So they went with an interesting way here. They break it down with different types of vehicles. So sedans is going to be eligible if they are under 55,000, SUVs under 69,000, pickup trucks under 74,000, and vans under 54,000. So this is an interesting approach here. Most other countries with their EV incentive, they have caps on the price of the vehicles in order to be eligible. But I've never seen one that's so precise in terms of all the different vehicle types that you can have. Finally, there's also a cap on the income that you can have in order to get access to those incentive. We've seen other proposed reforms having that, but this one here, it's a pretty wide open one because we're talking about $400,000 for individual filers and $800,000 for joint filers. So for most people, it should be okay, unless you're super rich. But in that case, you're really looking for $7,500 discount. Well, technically, it's up to $12,000. So all of these points here that I've discussed have been mostly uncontroversial. Like people are, so there's some disagreement, of course, but for the most part, people agree, except for that $4,500 that is especially for EVs that have been assembled at union factories. So a lot of people are saying that it's a Tesla tax. Some people, but to be fair, it's not just Tesla tax because some other foreign automakers have factories in the US that are not unionized. But at the same time, most of those are not produced in production because, of course, they're just now starting production for the ID.4. Yeah, I mean, there's some opposition for it now. Like Elon has been obviously came out against it. He even claimed that Ford and the auto worker union wrote this part of the bill, and obviously this is clearly like a big boost to Michigan and to the stronghold of union workers and union auto workers there. And I mean, I didn't have to look too far to find some connection with. If you look at one of the main writer of the bill is Mr. Dan Kildee, I suppose you pronounce his name, who happens to be the U.S. representative for the Michigan's 5th Congressional District. So you can assume that that guy cannot be elected without the support of the UAW. So obviously there's some shenanigans going on here, but that's U.S. politics for you, and money and politics. So I don't know about you, Seth, but my take is, look, obviously this is not an ideal situation because you have a piece of legislation here that its goal is to accelerate EV adoption in the U.S. It's to incentivize the purchase of electric vehicles over gasoline vehicles and discount them to represent the fact that they have a lesser negative impact on the environment than their gasoline counterparts. That's how I see it personally. Now, whether or not these cars are made by union workers doesn't have any impact on the impact that they have on the environment.
Right.
So I just think that they are like confusing two pieces of legislation. I'm not saying that I'm anti-union or pro-union, and that's like nothing to do with it. That's what I'm saying. It has nothing to do with this piece of legislation. It's obviously, like I said, being used to squeeze in a few more shekels for the unions here in this case.
I agree. I didn't feel, there was previous versions of this, and they had a much smaller union. I think it was like 2,500 or something like that. Even less than that, I don't think anybody would really be that upset about. But $4,500 is huge, and I don't know. It just doesn't rub me the right way that they're throwing the bone. I mean, obviously Biden's got a lot of union support. It feels kind of like the events that he's had has been only union companies. It just feels like the unions are really strong arming this whole thing. And like you, I'm not anti-union. I think there's a lot of good that comes out of unions, but it kind of rubs me the wrong way that there's so much money going to union shops over non-union shops here.
Yeah, and like you said, there's so much good that comes out of unions, and that's the thing. Like, it's really hard to be anti-union. Like, if being anti-workers bending together to have a better bargaining power over their rich employers, like there's like who's going to disagree with that? Like, unless you're a very rich employer. But like in terms of like the populace, I mean, it's hard to disagree with that. But you can be anti-specific unions, however. And the UAW has proven to be to have their hands less than clean, let's just say. Like, there's been several scandals within the community of spending union money through the roof and everything. Like, to me, a union, like, it should be like there's no rich person at the top of union that is paying, like, I think I've seen things like $14,000 spent at the cigar shop and things like that on union dollars. Like, a union head should be a union worker that is like elected temporarily to be a union head, and there's a revolving door of them, and they're still workers because that's what they are. They are union of workers. If you start to bring in a hierarchy of people like that, and like there's executive that gets 6 figures for being just a union representative, like that's where you lose me. So if we come back to the actual piece of legislation here, like if that specific thing wasn't in there, I think it would be perfect. But I don't want to push back too much either way, because this, as it stands right now, this piece of legislation would still greatly accelerate EV adoption in the US. There's no doubt about that. So if it's either that or nothing, I definitely want that. So that's why I'm more careful in the way I'm talking about this proposed reform to the EV incentive here. But I've heard also some people saying, like, okay, so if they are playing the game like that, let's play their game in the same way, and there's nothing stopping the factories that are not unionized to unionize, but not with the UAW here, was definitely pushing that piece of legislation. So that could be an option, and you could see Chattanooga unionizing within themselves, creating their own union, Tesla Fremont, and not getting involved with UAW. Of course, I don't know how the head of Volkswagen America, like you said, would feel about that, and I don't know how Elon Tesla would feel about that, but that would probably show them the true colors if they weren't really on board with that, because if the real problem is with UAW, not with the actual fact of unionizing, this will show it. But I think it's at least an option to consider.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're going to keep a close eye to this piece of legislation as it moves through the process here. But it looks like it's going to be part of this giant social bill. But by the time it clears the House and the Senate, it's probably going to have a few changes to it. And that one might be one of them. But also, like, to be honest, like $12,500 is a lot of money. Like, you don't even need that to incentivize EVs that much.
Yeah, I mean, so that to that point, I kind of got the impression that Elon was kind of like, we don't really even need an incentive at this point. I mean,
well, they obviously don't, because
like they can't make enough cars right now.
Yeah, not only they cannot make enough cars in the US, but also they own over 60% of the market in the US while being the only, except for the Bolt, only cars that don't have access to the incentive. So they're already showing that they don't need the incentive to dominate the U.S. market. So
Right. So the other automakers are getting an incentive, and that will make them more competitive with Tesla.
yeah, and
I
already
mean,
making them more competitive
right,
for some of them. So yeah, this is a problem.
for
Yeah,
Tesla.
I think Tesla would be fine without it, but at the same time, that would be purely a competitive move here. It would be a pro EV adoption move. Like you want, like this is incentive. They makes like that's the thing too. Like people always when I talk about that, like I'm for this legislation here that gives $12,000 to people that are buying an EV. People are like, yeah, you're just like a subsidy whore. Like you just want to go after the subsidies. Look, I mean, personally, I think it would be better without any subsidies and instead tax carbon as it should be taxed for its impact. Like
Fully
I
agree.
think, yeah, we all agree on that, but that's never going to happen. And I mean, Elon had an interesting comment that I don't think Biden ever commented on that, and I don't think he ever will. But um, he said that he was approached to discuss the tax credit for electric vehicle after Biden was elected, and he talked to the Biden's team, and he said, "Look, we also agree the same thing with like incentive or not the ideal a penalty for carbon would make a lot more sense." And apparently, this team, that's according to Elon, said that that's not politically feasible. Like it's not it's too hard to accomplish politically wise. So they're not going to do it. While this $12,000 incentive apparently is more palatable to Congress. I don't know.
Hmm.
Well, anyway, let's keep an eye on it moving forward. Let's hit some Tesla news real quick. The some news on the FSD Beta V10. It came out last weekend as Elon promised, so that's good. Finally, a FSD timeline that that Tesla sticks to. Though I mean, I watched all the videos and everything, and Elon, and that's on him. He's been hyping that update like crazy. Like how many times he called it mind blowing. It was mind blowing in itself, but watching all the videos and everything, it didn't really blow my mind. I mean, not much more than the previous version, which were already
That,
kind of impressive in themselves.
yeah, I feel like a lot of the commenters didn't really get that nuance where it's
Yeah,
like the previous version and autopilot in general is mind blowing, but this update wasn't a mind blowing update.
yeah,
Like,
exactly. The difference between the previous update and this one wasn't mind blowing because that's what it sounded like. But if you've never heard of FSD before and you see V10, you're like, wow, this is impressive stuff, and sure it is. But if you've seen 9.3 and everything, like you're like, all right, like this is an incremental change, nothing mind blowing. But what I'm seeing right now, really out of FSD with V10 is Tesla pretty much as the perception aspect of self driving figured out. Like the car can understand its environment extremely well, like impressively well, um, which is a great feat, like incredible feat, and congrats to the Tesla team for achieving that. It's absolutely incredible. However, on the decision making front, on like how the driving behavior, I'm not that impressed because I've seen from all the demos that came out over the last week, I've seen a ton of like major mistakes out of FSD, illegal driving behavior, really dangerous driving behavior. And I mean, I wrote in this article about it not being mind blowing. That to me, it looks like a 13-year-old that stole their parents' car and is learning how to drive, basically. And a 13-year-old with perfect 20/20 vision, you can see the road perfectly fine. You can reach over the over the steering wheel, but when it comes to making decisions, he makes dumb ones, as you would expect from a 13-year-old. But here's the thing: you can take a 13 years old, teach him how to drive for a few years, and he's going to be able to drive pretty safely, really, if you teach him well. And the idea is that
like a
Tesla
20-year-old.
say that again.
Like a 20-year-old.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if even Tesla wants that comparison though. But the idea is that with the neural nets, like the FSD would learn faster than the average human, so we could see it faster than a natural progression, like going from a 13-year-old to a 20-year-old. That would take you 7 years of learning how to drive. Let's say that the Tesla FSD can do it in 2 or 3. That would be amazing. But yeah, the big thing with V10 too has been the wider release. Elon has been talking about the wider release, and now yesterday he made some comments about that. He did say that now the wider release will come next Friday, and but at the same time he added the condition that as you press the down, like, because the wider release will be linked to a download button, so you can go into your car. If you bought the full self-driving package, you'll be able to download the latest software. But as you do that, Tesla will ask you to accept that they will use your telemetry data and try to figure out if you're a good driver using the same calculator that Tesla used for Tesla insurance. So they're basically going to track how you drive for a week. And from that, they're going to make some sort of judgment whether or not you're a good candidate for FSD Beta, which is really not as much as a wide release as we were expecting. Really.
No, I'm worried about my driving for a week if and when the button comes.
Yeah, here's the thing though. When you accept for Tesla to track your data, I would assume that you're gonna be extremely careful the way you drive for a week. I don't know what happened if you're not driving that week. You press the data and leave your car because it happens that I don't drive for days on end. Like
I'm in the same boat.
Yeah. So what happened then? Good question. But yeah, I mean, it raises. Speaking of question, it raises a lot of questions because okay, what happened if Tesla figures out that okay, you're not good enough a driver? What happens now? When do you actually get access to the full self-driving package? Because you already paid for it. If you have access to the download button, you paid the up to $10,000 to get it.
Yeah.
And now Tesla is denying access to you because of apparently you don't drive good enough or whatever is going to be the actual criteria that they're going to use. So what does it mean then? When are you going to be able to get access to it, or when it's not going to be in beta anymore, which we have no idea when that's going to happen?
Do you think they're actually checking your driving abilities, or maybe they're checking the roads that you're on as well? Like maybe if you're on like dirt roads or something, that's not a good candidate. But if you're on easy to navigate interstates a lot, maybe that makes you.
So he said that they're going to use the same driving calculator as Tesla Insurance use. We did
Right.
report on that earlier this year. The Tesla's posted some data about that. And here are the factors that they take in. So ABS activation. So when the ABS actually activate, hours driven, which I mean doesn't tells you much. Forced autopilot disengagement, a number of times that autopilot is disabled due to in-your alerts. So if you're ignoring autopilot alerts, that's going to be a bad factor. Forward collision warning, so the number of times that you detect a potential forward collision. So when you get the beep, 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 try to avoid that. Unsafe following time, so it actually detects the following time, and if it believes it to be unsafe, that's going to take some point off your board. And intensity of acceleration and braking. So this is the actual like telemetry data that people are used to, like that. What's most like because this is not entirely new. Like a lot of people are like, what the hell? This is so big, broader. Tesla is looking how you drive and everything. I mean, obviously, insurers don't have access to all that kind of data here, but there's literally insurers that will offer you to, for years now, to download an app, and the app will activate when you're driving and will detect the intensity of acceleration and braking, and they will use that to determine if you're a dangerous driver or not, and that will affect your insurance premium. That's not new to Tesla at all. So the thing here is that Tesla is using it to determine or not if you're ready for self-driving, for full self-driving data, I should say, FSD Beta. So maybe if you're not ready for the beta, you're only gonna get it when it gets out of beta, but that could take like forever. That's gonna depend on like regulatory approval and everything. It's not even up to Tesla, and do you get reimbursed in the meantime? Because like, I don't know. This whole thing is like a completely new way of handling this. Like they're very disrupting in the auto industry. We've never seen any approaches like that.
Yeah, and also like there's been from like since 2017, there's been like pseudo promises on Twitter of FSD coming soon, or at that point it was like advanced autopilot. But like it's always coming soon. It's always like just around the corner. And you know, like I had a Model X for 3 years. Like I leased it, and I was supposed to get it, and I never got. Like I had to return it, and I never got never got it. I mean, it wasn't like, we got it leased, and it was a partially used one, so it was kind of like, we'll take whatever it's got on it. But like, if I had purchased that, as a lease, and I had to return it, and I never got to use any kind of full self-driving, I mean, yeah, I guess lane change and that stuff is cool, but I would be quite upset if I purchased full self-driving and then 3 years later never got to use it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't remember when they made the change to 10,000, but especially like the latest price, like $10,000. It's for the current features. If you don't have the FSD beta, it's not worth it. Even if you have FSD beta, like it's limited FSD beta, because even though like it's feature complete, it closed the gap between autopilot and smart 7, on however you want to look at it. You're still completely responsible for the car. You need to be ready to take control all the time. It's not that much less stressful of a driving experience. So anyway, all right. One last thing on FSD beta. It looks like Tesla is now testing it in Canada. I know we have a lot of Canadian listeners, and a lot of people have been asking when is it going to be available in Canada, and the answer is always whenever, a few months after it's going to be available in the US, because they need to adapt, of course, the software to different road markings and different rules and everything. But I mean, we always expected the Canadian market to be the next one after the US, because road rules and road markings and signs are fairly similar to the ones in the US. Maybe in Quebec it's a little bit different.
Yeah, I was going to say, how come in France they have stop signs, but you still got arrête in
Yeah,
Quebec?
because in France they're not surrendered by 350 million English-speaking people that are threatening to absorb our language and everything.
Right.
No, I mean, I'm exaggerating it a little bit, but this is pretty much it. This is the idea. Like, we are more protective of our French language because, I mean, we're gonna lose it otherwise. Like, it's just like it happened in Louisiana with the French people there, and they're a little bit more careful here. I admit that forced stop, it's a little bit much, but I'm sure that, to be fair, for a full self-driving system, that would be the hardest thing to implement. But there's other things to just how people do road markings here. But there's this guy that goes by Joshua C on YouTube that this week he started posting a bunch of FSD Beta V10 drive in Canada. So it looks like Tesla is starting to onboard some Canadian early access owners to test the features. So we expect as the wide release happen next week. I mean, it's not really going to be next week, because technically you won't be able to get the software until for another week after that if you're on your good behaviors. But I would expect not more than a few months after that, Canadians going to start getting the wider release too. All right, do you want to do a quick Electrify America promotion?
Yes, I don't have the read in front of me though. Why don't we wait a second?
All right, I can do the next one in the meantime, because we have a JB Straubel, one of my favorite people, one of my heroes, one of the most important person, I think, in electrification. Is of course longtime Tesla CTO, Tesla co-founder, and he left Tesla in 2019 to focus on his startup Redwood Materials. And the way he talked about Redwood Materials was always more about recycling. So they want to take battery packs, used battery packs from electric cars, used electronics, personal electronics, cell phones, laptop, and everything, and they want to recycle them to restore the critical materials in them and use that to basically as a mining operation, mining critical materials from used electronics and cars. But what he announced this week is that they're taking it to a whole new step, a step that makes sense, because if you're recycling materials and using them to make batteries, mostly that's what we're talking about here, you're going to have a mix of recycled and new materials in it. It's going to be invisible. And what Redwood Materials announced this week is that they're going to build a giant new factory in the US that's not going to be only about recycling, but also they're going to incorporate basically the anode copper foil and cathode active material production. So they're going to produce anode with copper foil and cathode material. So two of the most important part of a battery. And they are talking about, no joke, a very giant factory here, 100 gigawatt hour of cathode material capacity by 2025. And they want to rev that up to 500 gigawatt hour of capacity by 2030. So giant shift here, because most of that is happening in Asia right now. Any cathode production, anode production is not very popular in the US right now. There's some plans to do it. Redwood is not the only one, but at this scale, it's giant. And Redwood is in a great position to do it. Of course, Straubel himself has a lot of experience doing that. He was the lead with the Panasonic partnership that set up the first cell production at Gigafactory, the biggest cell production in the US. And he's himself very knowledgeable of batteries. But this is a capital intensive business, and they need a lot of cash to do it. But Amazon, Jeff Bezos to the rescue. They injected $700 million in this company in July. Not just Amazon, but a bunch of investors. A lot of Tesla investors too backed the company. So I was already happy to see that, because of course, like, if you're for EV, accelerating EV adoption, the main thing to do that is you have to increase production capacity, and to increase electric vehicle production capacity, you have to increase battery capacity, and to have to increase battery capacity, you have to increase battery material production capacity, and that's exactly what Straubel is doing here. He's going to the very source of the problem and hoping to help others expand from there.
Yeah, we should also note, it's like quite sad, but we heard that his wife had been tragically killed in a truck hitting a bike accident recently.
Oh, yeah.
That was really, really hard to hear. So condolences to him and his family on that one. That's horrible.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, moving on to Electrify America. Electrify America is again sponsoring the Electrek Podcast. Electrify America now operates the largest public ultra-fast electric vehicle charging network in the United States. And a few recent updates on the network, Electrify America is now the coast-to-coast with more than 650 EV charging stations, with new locations opening every week. It now offers ultra-fast charging with speeds up to 150 kilowatt and 350 kilowatt for capable vehicles, allowing you to charge up as fast as possible and get back on the road. EA offers a new monthly subscription plan with contactless payments through its mobile apps, and with it, you can save up to 25% on charging. If you're an EV driver and want to learn more about Electrify America and its growing network of charging stations across the U.S., find out what they're up to at electrifyamerica.com. That's electrifyamerica.com, or hit up the link in the show notes. Thanks again to Electrify America for sponsoring this week's show.
Yes.
And they're also plug and charge. We should note that, like, that's kind of one of our favorite technologies coming out, and Electrify America is kind of leading the charge in the U.S. on that. So that's good.
Yes, absolutely. All right, we're gonna have a few more news items to discuss, and then we're gonna jump into the comment section. If you have a question for us, please put it in all caps in the comment section, so it's easier for us to see the question rather than all the discussions that are going out right now in the comments, because I see a lot of comments today. So just if you can make it a little bit easier for us to see what's a question and what's a discussion among you guys, that would be appreciated. So any kind of question of topics you want us to discuss, we're going to get to them in a few minutes. But let's talk about Rivian, because they had a big announcement this week, is that they rolled out of the production and it's a nice R1T blue SUV, the same blue that we've seen for since the original unveiling in Los Angeles. I want to say, was it 2017, 2018?
Yeah, it sounds right around then.
Yeah, that's basically when they came out of stealth mode. And now they're finally bringing it to production, and they are sort of been declared the winner of the race to bring a production electric truck to the market. I mean, of course, they haven't delivered the truck just yet, but we expect deliveries to happen any day now. Of course, there's the media drive coming out next week, and then there's the customer drives the week after that. and we expect deliveries to customer to start in between that. So by the end of the month, they've been saying September deliveries. So I assume that they're going to stick to that at this point. But yeah, big congratulations to Rivian to winning that race. However, I want to point out that race, although symbolic and everything is great, that's not really the most important race when it comes to electric pickup trucks. The most important race is to achieve volume production of electric pickup truck. And I still think Rivian is the leader on that front because they look like they are far ahead. But you have to be careful with that because Ford has a lot of experience building pickup trucks in volumes. And then on the other side, you also have Tesla that, while no experience in building pickup trucks in volumes, they have the most experience building electric vehicles in volumes. So you have a lot of competitor here. And while Rivian has started production now, ramping up to volume production is not an easy task either. And just as Rivian announced their first production car truck, Ford the next day announced that they started the pre-production of the F-150 Lightning. So I don't know if it's a coincidence or not, but I thought it was interesting. And at the same time, they announced their acceleration of their investment at the Rouge electric vehicle factory that they have in Dearborn, where they're producing the F-150 Lightning. $250 million more to accelerate the production capacity. But they just confirmed 80,000 trucks per year that's going to bring them. So we assume that that's what we reported on last month about Ford accelerating their plans, which what we heard was 15,000 in next year, 55,000 in 2023, and 80,000 in 2024. So I assume that's what they're talking about now. We already discussed that we think it's not incredible volume, but still decent.
Well, compared to their pre-orders, like they're not going to be able to. Like if you pre-order a Ford F-150 now, you're at least waiting 3 years because they're not going to make enough, and then you're going to get the model that's after the one that they're currently making.
Yes, because they are talking about the 2025 next generation of the truck already. And that one, once they do that, they're planning to double the production to over 160,000 units per year.
We should also note that there's an embargoed Rivian event. I heard a little bit about it at the VW event that we were at. And somebody said that somebody got altitude sickness at 10,000 feet. So it might be a pretty interesting event, it sounds like. And I'm sure that's embargoed till October or something.
I would think not, because the customer drives are starting like the 26th.
Oh, that's true. But that's in like normal.
Yeah, but I assume if they're starting the customer
Yeah,
drive,
that's true.
they're gonna lift them or go for the media drive to post on them. Yeah, very like it's just. I mean, this race to electric truck production in the U.S. is really the most important thing to electric vehicle adoption in the U.S. because pickup trucks are the most popular passenger vehicles in this market, which is kind of crazy when you think about it.
It is crazy.
But it is what it is, and it's easier to improve electric vehicle technology, than it is to change consumers' habits. So
Right.
instead of convincing people not to buy pickup trucks, you have to get them to buy electric pickup trucks, which I really think is going to be an easier task. Because they're going to be better product. I think there's no doubt about that. We've seen that happen with sedans. We've seen it happen right now with the SUVs, and it's going to happen with pickup trucks. It's inevitable. But yeah, I mean, I'm really curious to see how Rivian's going to handle that production ramp. I'm bullish on it. I think they're going to do great, but it's their first time, and it can be hard. It's been hard for Tesla. We've seen it, though. Rivian benefits a lot from Tesla in the fact that they can learn from their mistakes, and they hired a lot of people from Tesla that are aware of those mistakes and going to try not to replicate them at Rivian. So this is a big advantage for them. But yeah, I mean, Ford would be like the front runner on that front. Like, these guys make more pickup trucks than anyone, but these numbers that we're seeing right now are not the most encouraging out there. Like 80,000 trucks, 80,000 production capacity in 2024. I mean, even Tesla starting production later than that, I think they would reach that faster than 2024. Probably not that much faster, though. Probably in 2023 if they start in late 2022. Like, yeah, so I don't know. We'll see. I still think Rivian is the leader on that front.
Yeah, it's good to have competition.
Mhm. Speaking of competition set, Lucid, they officially announced their EPA ratings this week, and they did confirm. Well, the EPA did confirm that on their cycle they do get 520 miles of range for the Dream Edition. So official EPA rating, Dream Edition, 520, but that's if you use the 19-inch wheels. Like those wheels, they make a big difference. So be careful with that. Yeah, you need the 19. But look, if you want the cool look of the 21-inch, you get 481 miles of range. So it's not like you're gonna be stranded with those. And then if you want the higher performance version, the Dream Edition Performance, you fall to 471 for the 19, 451 for the 21-inch. And then you have the Grand Touring option. So it's the less powerful than the Dream Edition. You fall down at 800 HP. But you still get over 500 miles of range, 516 for the 19-inch wheel, and if you want the nicer looking 21, you go to 469 miles. And they seem confident that they're gonna still deliver those first car by the end of the year. And if they're getting the EP rating now, it's a good sign that the vehicles are on track to get to customers soon. So we're excited to get behind the wheels of that one too.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like Lucid's a takeover target, like Apple
Apple, yeah.
or even Google, or like maybe a company that it's behind in the electrification, maybe like Stellantis, or I mean that doesn't really fit there.
I think Lucid is worth more than Stellantis.
Right.
I don't even know how much Stellantis is worth, but
Yeah.
I think Stellantis is Lucid.
Yeah, but I mean, Apple or
20 or 30
Google
billion.
are both probably.
Yeah, I mean, Apple would make the most sense, especially like
if they're really trying to do a car.
Yeah, I mean, the Lucid Air is a beautiful, beautiful vehicle. Incorporate Apple software and full self-driving capacity.
Yeah,
that we know they've been working on, and there you
Quite a
go. You have
package.
your Apple car produced by Lucid. I don't know. I think, well, at the same time, I don't want to diminish what Lucid has been doing. I think they
Right.
can be a great standalone company. They have great leadership. They have incredible engineering power behind them. So they could make it on their own. But I do agree that it's tempting. If you're like, they would be a tempting target to take over, because like right now they have the longest range car, which is a big like kicker. I'm not that big of a fan of 500-mile car. Like it's
Yeah.
not. I don't need 500 mile, but I do understand that it's like a psychological barrier that is helping a lot of people and convince them to go electric. So I'm still happy that it exists. But even like, I mean, I live in Quebec, where we have like the most difficult winter that affects the range like crazy, and still then like that's where the 500 miles would be more useful, because you could get like over 300 miles in the dead cold of winter. But still then I'm like, it's still a bit too much for me.
Yeah. I mean, you're basically like your normal commute is what, 40 miles. So on a normal day, you'd be carrying around 500 miles of range of batteries, and you'd really only be traveling like 40 miles a day. That seems like a waste.
Mm-hmm. All right. The other thing that came out of the EPA this week is the range for the dual motor all-wheel drive version of the VW ID.4. And it came out at 249 for the Pro and 240 for the S. So you lose by going all-wheel drive versus the rear-wheel drive version. You lose 11 miles for the Pro version and 10 miles for the Pro S. And I think that difference is mainly when you get the Pro S package, you get the bigger wheels, and we know the bigger wheels does affect the range.
Yep.
But Seth, you managed to get it behind the wheel of the all-wheel drive this week, right?
Yeah, it was quite fun. So VW flew us down, wined us and dined us. But then after we wined, we went to sleep and sobered up, and then we got to drive all around Chattanooga, which is the location of the new factory that is not yet producing cars. They had one come off the assembly line, but they're ramping. I guess German car companies they spend a lot of time practicing. They had all the like robots doing their thing, but they without real parts. So They gave us a factory tour. That was pretty neat. To be honest with you, like they weren't producing cars at that time. So it was kind of like, what are we really looking at? Yeah, that's not a stamp. There's like 20 pieces in that riveted together. And VW, like, of course I asked like, hey, why don't you just do one big mega stamp? And they're like, oh, what happens when you get in a fender bender? You got to replace the whole car. So they have their retorts. Also, I believe one of the VW guys might have said something about, if we were Tesla, this would be a launch event, and the cars coming off the assembly line would be, instead of being practice cars, would be, deliveries to employees kind of thing. So they had their chuckles. But yeah, the car is great. So I reviewed the regular ID.4, the rear wheel drive ID.4, back in the winter, and it was in the middle of a snowstorm, so I could barely get up my driveway with the rear wheel drive. My problem with it was that I felt that it was my big problem was that I felt that it was underpowered. This one adds 100 more horsepower, so from 200 horsepower to 300 horsepower, that's a big 50% improvement. And you could definitely feel it. 5.4 seconds, 0 to 60, which is not, ludicrous or anything, or plaid, but it's definitely a lot faster. No problem accelerating in traffic. Feels fine. I mean, it's kind of like, I have a base Tesla Model Y. It feels a lot like that, accelerating. It, also like a base model Mustang. It's similar to that kind of power. Interior is great. It looks fantastic. They still need to work on their center stack. The UI isn't great. We had some like sticky stuff. The navigation system, which I think is Here Maps from Nokia, or it used to be Nokia, took us off on a dirt road. We were like, are you sure that VW wants us to go this way? And we did what the thing told us to do, and we went on the back in the middle of nowhere on a dirt road, which is a great test for the all-wheel drive. But we saw some kind of like deliverance scenes, just like houses with like motors in the front yard, and like dogs, like maybe like 10 dogs without collars, just
it's running, just a pack of dogs.
Yeah, just running alongside the car. It was very, I don't know. I don't think that was VW's intention to have us go through that. But we got to test the off-road capability, and I was impressed. Like, we do have the bigger 20-inch wheels on there, but I don't think I would have taken my Model Y back there. We tried off-roading in the Model Y a little bit, and it just didn't feel like the suspension didn't feel like it was up to it. So I think they've got a little bit better thing going on here compared to the Model Y in that respect. So I don't know. I thought it was a pretty good car. I don't think I'm probably the target audience. I think that this is more for I don't want to say middle America, but like people who don't read electric car websites.
You took a long pause after you said don't read.
people that aren't our readers, like our readership is
that's okay.
You know what I mean? Like people who don't spend their time researching electric vehicles, who don't want like yoke steering wheels and ludicrous type stuff. Just like, hey, I want a car. I want it to be convenient. I want it to be whatever. I think that people like that are going to love this car. It's a great car. Also, it was kind of interesting. The guy, Dustin, former Tesla guy, he had a lot of old Elon stories, which, I probably shouldn't share. But he is a smart guy. Obviously, former Tesla exec, knows the electric car market pretty well. Usually we're just at these kind of events, we're talking to PR people who've been there like a couple years, and they drive a gas car at home and they're just kind of winging it. These guys, it reminded me a little bit of Matt at Audi, like real electric car aficionados. They the guys there were really smart. They drive electric vehicles. They walk the walk. So I came away thinking like the factory is great for Chattanooga. They're doing all the right things. They're making the moves they have to do. They do need to do some more software updates. Plug
Yeah,
and
that's
charge.
coming, right?
Yeah, but it's been coming since March, so
Yeah.
they really need to kind of make that happen. And then obviously plug and charge, but they also mentioned bidirectional charging is on their roadmap, so that's kind of cool. So I don't know. I think VW's doing really well. I think the ID.4 is going to be really nice for a lot of people. They're really out there selling it. It's not like a compliance car by any stretch. They really want to sell a ton of these, and they are.
Yeah. We can wait again for them to ramp up production in Chattanooga. That's going to be a big deal too. Just more electric production in the U.S. It's going to help adoption for sure. All right, should we jump into the comments?
Sure.
It's already almost 7 p.m. here.
Yeah, if you want any, if you guys want to talk to us, caps lock it. All right, James Reach. Which Tesla Model S trims come standard with passenger side lumbar support? That sounds like
none. Maybe the new Model S and
they stopped.
Which Tesla? Okay. Yeah, now we have a problem with the whole caps because I thought it was like Model S, but it's just Tesla models. I don't know about the new Model S, but I think they scrapped it all for the Model 3, Model Y. Like they were literally saying like no one was using it, so we took them off.
Yeah, the incentive program should not include any plug-in hybrids, according to James.
I think they do, but with the 4,000, because if it counts on under 40 kilowatt hours. So, I mean, to be honest, the plug-in hybrids are going to get destroyed in the next few years by the all-electric versions. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. All right. Do you think the lower take rate on FSD is due to the cost or the timeline delays? Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Don't need to precise which one because it's definitely both. Yeah, there's no doubt about that one.
All right. Does Rivian have anything like full self-driving? I don't.
No, they're not quite as bold as to call anything full self-driving like Tesla. I think Tesla is the only one that either bold enough or moronic enough to call a package full self-driving years before it's even close to that. But if you're asking if they have their own autonomous driving effort, they do. And they're gonna do a more like I think like Mercedes-Benz ones, like type of thing where they're gonna do level by level going up versus Tesla's like all-in approach. But yeah, I mean we haven't had the opportunity to test it obviously yet, so we're gonna do that soon.
All right. Do you think the Bolt fiasco will hurt Cadillac Lyriq sales? I don't think it's gonna help.
Yeah, I was thinking about that earlier. What if the Bolt fiasco would have happened like 3 years ago? I think I think the timing is incredible because if it would happen just a few years ago, I think it would have a giant impact on the electric cars right now. Like people would be freaking out and everything. But I think now like people have settled in enough into the reality that electric cars are the inevitable future, that this problem that it's definitely like a Bolt, a GM / LG / Hyundai, though Hyundai definitely handled it a lot better than the two other mentioned. Now it's more like it's our problem. It's not like an electric car wild problem. Even though we can all agree that electric car have their safety issue related to batteries, you need to make sure that the batteries are safe and the battery packs are safe too. But other than that, like can you imagine like 3 years ago this happened? Like it would have been a giant setback for the AV adoption, I think.
You know what's weird though? Like, the Bolts have been out since like end of 2016. Like, it doesn't seem like they started catching on fire until like 2020.
Yeah, it looks like degradation might have been a part of it too. Like,
yeah, for sure. But now it's like the new ones are catching fire.
Yeah, well,
it's like they didn't make it. They screwed up. Like,
and GM confirmed this week that they're gonna shut down that Bolt UV production until
October.
Yeah, mid-October at least. So it's going to be at least over a month, almost 2 months of production shutdown for them. Yeah, it's a big deal. Now, as it would affect the Ultium, look, don't expect giant volume for Ultium from the start either. Like it's just like you shouldn't expect giant volume from Rivian this year or even next year. So I think it's going to be a slow ramp up for the GM's Ultium vehicles, starting with the Hummer and then the Lyric, which I think they're going to sell everything they can make, really,
Yeah.
regardless of fiascos, like you just called it, for the boat.
All right, here's a good question. Have we heard anything on the VW electric bus? Wife wants one. Good news. If I did hear some stuff on the bus, it's already been public, but they said that it's going to be 2023, so that's about a year and a half from now, or 2024, worst case scenario if the chip shortage continues and there's still issues. Some details on it. The bus is in Germany, it's going to be an 8-seater, but in the US, the third row is probably going to be a 2-seater because of some like NHTSA stuff or whatever. So 7-seat, lots of room in the back. Apparently, one of the guys had been in the back of it and said it was quite roomy for even adults. And it's going to be the next electric VW in the US, as far as I know. And, they also said that there's going to be a sedan VW coming to the US at some point. So that's going to be kind of interesting as well. Not the ID.3, unfortunately.
All right.
All right. Somebody says, I disagree with Seth, even though it's not caps lock. So I had to check it out. I'm considering an ID.4 because I can't afford a Model Y. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh. So what's the price of the all-wheel drive ID.4?
So it starts at $43,000. At the very end of my post, there's a good pricing chart. It starts at $43,000, but you've got a $7,500 federal tax credit today. And then, there's the typical $5,000 of gas savings or whatever. So that takes, $12,000 off that price. And then state incentives are going to drop it again. It's cheaper to run an electric vehicle. So, I guess that's the gas incentives, but also maintenance. So you're already looking at like a $30,000 car with all-wheel drive. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fair point from Roll here. It's definitely a lot cheaper than the Model Y.
Yep. All right.
Well,
I'm an EV fanboy. I just can't afford a Model Y, plus ID.4 has CarPlay. That's a great point. If you're a CarPlay fanboy, Android Auto fanboy, then all of a sudden the Mustangs and the the ID.4s make a little bit more sense. And then we have one last question here. Is the bus going to have those crazy seats too still?
Probably talking about the seat in the concept version. I doubt it.
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to make like a camping version of that with like a fridge and a whatever. But, I think the initial ones are just going to be for lots of seating. And the VW, it's going to be called the Buzz or Buzz. I don't know. I don't know if it's supposed to be pronounced Buzz, but it's able to have 3 rows of like adult seating because the front row is so close to the front of the car versus a typical SUV, which has a large front trunk or whatever. So that means the middle row is going to be quite roomy and the back row is going to be quite roomy.
And then you can are you going to be able to like have just like 2 rows like that, and like because that system of moving the rows like that is pretty cool on the floor.
That is pretty cool. I don't know if they're going to keep it like that, but you're going to be able to have up to 8 people seating in there.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, we'll keep an eye on that. Will Tesla ever get CarPlay? At this point, I don't think so. I mean, for years they've been promising like phone mirroring, which is basically what
just put an iPad in your buy one of those new minis. Just tape it.
At this point, I think Tesla is all in on their own software.
Yeah.
They're not going to let anyone else put an handicap on their screen. And to be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of CarPlay and Android Auto, so and I love Tesla software, so I'm okay with it. But at the same time, I would not mind if they launch that because it's just more option for people. Anyway, thanks a lot for listening, everyone. Thanks a lot for watching. If you're on YouTube, please give us a thumbs up. It's always appreciated. Subscribe to get to the next video that we're going to launch. I think Seth has a video coming up on the ID.4 all-wheel drive, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a bunch of other stuff that's coming up here that we filmed from IAA and Eurobike. Check out the new Eurobike video that Micah posted this week. Seth and I are both featuring it, and it's a very fun video that gives you, if you weren't able to attend the show, it gives you a pretty good summary of Eurobike 2021. If you're listening on your podcast app, please give us a 5-star rating. That's really helps the show a lot. A review, always appreciate it. We read them all. And yes, that's pretty much it. I'm gonna go to sleep now because I have to catch a flight back to Montreal tomorrow, first thing in the morning, and I'm gonna be back home for next week episode next Friday. So we're gonna
have a safe flight.
Yes, thank you.